If you're interested in learning how I launched Zim Excellence, then you're in luck. Sign up for my podcast workshop and learn how it's easier and more affordable than ever to start a podcast. Also, grab yourself a copy of my podcast resource guide, which covers industry terminology, suggested tech setup, in addition to countless free online resources to support your podcast journey. Just head to wongai.com/podcast creation. That's wongai.com/podcast creation. The link will also be down in the show notes. Now, let's start the show. The following episode was recorded on the 31st of May, 2022. We apologize for the delay. Please enjoy. Yo! Welcome to the party! Hello, Makadini Salibonani. My name is Wongai, and you're listening to Zim Excellence, a weekly celebration of Zimbabwe's changemakers and trailblazers. So here's the secret, y'all. Zimbabweans are actually dope AF, and it's just time that we recognize it. So grab yourself a plate of sadza and grab that stony ginger beer, and let the party begin. Welcome to another episode of Zim Excellence. Today, my guest is the founder and CEO of the award-winning global agency Girls Talk London, which connects women in 37 countries with businesses to empower them and to develop the skills and confidence to succeed in work and life. Through the agency, she works with companies such as Facebook, HSBC, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Snap Inc., Virgin Media, O2BT, and Vodafone, connecting them with diverse talent across all levels within their businesses. She sits on the advisory board of She of the Sea and is a subcommittee board member of Refuge. We ain't finished, y'all. And she has a current social media following of 22K, also hosting the business podcast, The After Work Drinks Club, which debuted at number 4 on the Apple business charts. So y'all, she was around like Tim Ferriss. They was on the same level for like a good week. It's dope. So our guest has 15 years of experience in development, inclusion, responsible business, and sustainability, working in the financial services, technology, and government. She has also been recognized as a leader in her field, listed as number 15 in the Financial Times, Yahoo Finance, and Empower Top Ethnic Minority Future Leaders in Europe, US, and Canada. Her expertise sits in creating and executing global diversity, inclusion, and sustainability strategies and programs, building capability and influence in organizations, and partnering with advising C-suite executives, senior leadership, and HR colleagues. Our wonderful guest has also been recognized as one of 30 people changing the world by the London Business School, which is one of London's most influential people by the Evening Standard newspaper, and has been featured in The Guardian, Cosmo magazine, Sunday Times Style magazine, Stylist magazine, and the Financial Times. So please welcome the incomparable Vanessa Sanyauke. Yay!
Wow. I'm reading that like, who is she?
That's you, girl. Vanessa, welcome to the party.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You are so welcome. So, it's a party. It's a celebration. You are all about, the after work drinks. So picture this. We are at the family function. The Zimbabwean function is happening. All the music's happening. Yeah. What are you putting on your plate, and what is your drink that's going to accompany your meal? Because it's a celebration. What are you getting at the function?
My go-to dish definitely has to be meat, because it's not a Zim function. We don't do vegan. We don't do vegetarian. Yeah, exactly.
We don't do vegan.
Exactly.
Well, my dad is like pescatarian now, so
that is really like
but he'll dabble. Right? Yeah. Fish is meat.
Fish is all right, but we have to have some kind of animal in our function. So for me, it would be, some beef. I love mac and cheese. So I have some beef, mac and cheese. I like a good salad, some rice.
Nice. Then, brown or white? This is important stuff.
Brown. So I'm trying to be healthy.
With
so
peanut butter, without peanut butter?
Without. Okay,
my mom does a dope one with the peanut butter. So if I'm going to have the brown,
I've had that.
Yeah. It's so great.
It tastes lovely, but I would have it without, just to be healthy. And then my drink, I love champagne. I love champagne. I love wine.
I'm a champers girl too.
Yeah, it's just so fabulous. So glass of champagne with my meat, with my beef and my carbs.
Love it. Living your best life.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have to tell them, but I kind of want to tell them. So how do you and I know each other? So we happen to share the same godmother. Shout out to her.
Yes, Auntie Matty,
and I like it, it's so funny because you're this amazing, accomplished person. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I grew up with her. So growing up, I had my favorite cousin. I don't know if we're going to say her name or we should say her name. I don't know. It depends how you feel. But I had my favorite cousin and you were my favorite cousin's favorite cousin. So I was always kind of jealous of you.
Who's that?
Gary Kai. I created this belief system, because Gary Kai was my favorite cousin and she's also my god sister. And then you were her favorite cousin. So I'd be around her and I'd be like, oh my gosh. But then you'd come around and she'd be like, Vanessa. And I was like, darn it.
Oh no. It's funny. But the thing is, it's so funny because we have this joke that a lot of people, I think I'm slightly old. I think I'm older than you. I think.
Yeah, both. Yeah, both of us.
So people used to think that I was actually Auntie Matty's firstborn because I was always with her. So that's the relationship that Kai and I have. I'm literally like Auntie Matty's firstborn. Everyone asks her, "How's your eldest daughter Vanessa?" And then it's Gary Kai. So that's kind of how our relationship.
You're literally her sister, and then Gary Kai was like my sister, and I was like, darn it, why do I have to be the younger one?
So you're the baby sister.
I always you don't know this. This is confession time before we get into the actual meat of this episode. But I always saw you as this glamorous person, and I kind of aspired to be. I just have this interesting memory of I think Gary Kai and I came to your house, and then we were in your room. You'd gone somewhere, and you just happened to have all these things that matched skincare products, which is just so weird to think because you're probably really young and I'm like, what? How is she you just seem so sophisticated and she's older and cooler. So you had the tea tree this and the tea tree lotion and the tea tree that, and I'm like, oh my
gosh, I remember that.
That memory has stayed with me.
That is so hilarious because I remember my mum has always been big on skincare. Actually, her and Auntie Matty have got amazing skin, and they're amazing women in their 60s, but they look like they're in their 40s. And so that tea tree stuff was my mum saying, look, you're going to thank me when you're older. You might be 10, 11, but you need to start.
Yeah, you're probably 10.
So that was where the tea tree thing,
I was thinking about that last month when we had our pre-chat, and I was just it was probably her mom that introduced her to all those things. But when I was younger, I was like, she's so cool. She goes into Tesco's or wherever and she just says, Mom, I want that, and she gets it. I'm like, oh my god.
Hell no. My mom was like, you need to be using these. But it's so funny because you say you were this glamorous, but I'm just here, I've got no makeup on, I'm feeling a hot ass mess, no eyelashes, no, my eyebrows aren't done. So it's kind of funny how I don't necessarily feel glamorous.
You're still Vanessa, and I'm still very intimidated because I want to be you when I grow up. You are just so cool. And we would get together and listen to Destiny's Child or whatever the latest album was.
Yes,
guys, Vanessa always had the latest albums out. So you went to her house and you looked through her CDs, and you'd be like. I think Gary Guy would be like, oh, you got this. And you're like, yeah, it just came out the other day. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. I'm just
that was literally
the nerdy young one.
You know, it's so funny because we have another cousin called Lungi, and Lungi's like Vanessa, the Destiny's Child album. I always think of you. It's so funny, writings on the wall, was like the album with all of the cousins, I would literally rinse that album. So that is such a cool thing to hear, that you still got that memory. Oh, I love that.
And it was like you had Tapiwa, your brother, and then Gary had her brother, and then later on I had my brother, but then the boat was rocked because then our youngest cousin was born. It's just like, oh,
exactly. Oh, it's true.
But we still love you. DJ. Shout out to Tino. We still love you, DJ.
Exactly.
Okay,
oh, it's amazing.
So you were born in the UK, yes.
Yeah.
So, you want to give us a little bit about like your background and origin story, since you are a Zim Excellence superhero.
Superhero. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I was born in the UK, grew up in, actually I was born in North London. So that's where Kai and I grew up.
Shout out to North London. Yeah, I grew up in North London.
North London, I'm telling you.
None of this south, east, west, north, baby.
North was the best. And I actually wish, one of my lifelong dreams would be to move back to North London, but it's super expensive right now. So I'm in Southeast, but was born in North London. Highbury Hill was where we lived. And yeah, both my parents were born in Zimbabwe. But my mum is from Rusape, my dad is from Yanga, and then they moved to the UK in the late 70s. So they came here very young, actually very, very, very young, and they've stayed here ever since. And so they both had their education in the UK. So my dad went to Cardiff University and he studied civil engineering. And then my mum went to the University of Liverpool and studied nursing. And then they had me in the 80s, and then my brother Tapiwa followed in 1990. And so we grew up in North London for my early years. So I was born in North London, born in Whittington Hospital, grew up there, and then
my brother was born there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wait, did they? At one point they wanted to knock it down. Did that happen?
It's still around. It's still around. It is still there.
I have a certificate there. I don't know if it's still there, but like I got something because I was a good girl because I got my shots or something, and so they had my name and my face on the wall, and so I was literally a celebrity of Whittington Hospital. Legends.
It might still be there. I'd go and visit. Let's find that wall. But yeah, I loved it. I love North London, and my church is based around the corner from Whittington, actually. So I'm always there, and my lifelong dream would be able to afford to buy a flat there. That's probably what I could afford because it's so expensive. But I love it. It was some of the best memories.
Being there, Alexandra Park and all that. That's so great.
Exactly.
So, like, I want to kind of connect the dots a bit more. So we've got like, your upbringing and your parents' background. What is, the gap before we get to starting Girls Talk London and the Climb membership and all the wonderful stuff that you're doing with diversity inclusion? So here's another thing where we have something in common. We both went to Brunel. And you're actually the second
and I had no
person.
idea.
Yeah, we had literally no clue. Again, like even though we're literally twins, there is a bit of an age gap between us. Yeah. But you're the second person on the show who's actually gone to Brunel.
Really? I mean, what? Brunel's a special place. I feel that there's something special about Brunel, and Brunelians most of them have gone on to do amazing things. So there's definitely something special about that university. Yeah. I enjoyed my time there, actually. So I did. It's interesting, my story. So I was supposed to do medicine, got a place to do medicine, direct medicine at Queen Mary's, but didn't get the grades. So I missed out on my grades. So I ended up going to Brunel to do biomedical science, and then I was going to do graduate medicine afterwards. So go via another route. And then, I did biomedical science. Brunel was fun. It was really like a culture shock for me. So I grew up. So after growing up in North London, my parents moved us to Essex, and it was very, predominantly white. There was very few Black students. So during my teenage years, I didn't grow up with loads of Black people my age around me. So the most Black people that I kind of was around was my family, my cousins, or a few friends at school. When I went to Brunel, it was like, oh my gosh, I'd never seen so many Black people my age before in my entire life. And I think it was really like a revolution of me. And I really came into my shell became in touch with my culture, and there was like Nigerians and Ghanaians and Sierra Leoneans and Jamaicans and Trinidadians and all of these mixed Chinese Nigerians, like a mix. It was absolutely phenomenal, and 3 of the best years of my life. And a lot of even though I was doing biomedical science, I met a lot of my peers all started businesses at university, and that's where I got the entrepreneurial bug. And that's where I set up my first social enterprise. So Brunel was a lot of fun, a lot of parties, but a lot of cultural grounding and cultural awareness.
I love that so much. You know, you've just like kind of touched on this idea of before being at Brunel being the only one, which is a common story for like, sadly, for like a lot of people who, you know, grow up in environments where they are like the minority or like traditionally underrepresented, which is, you know, kind of sad. Who were the people that you looked up to growing up, or who you were able to see yourself in?
It would be famous people that I would look up to. So Oprah Winfrey, I started watching her show when I was 8 years old, and she was on like main.
See, you were the cool older cousin, because you're watching Oprah at 8. I was watching literally. Disney Channel.
Oh, I was interested. I was interested in, I don't know what they were called, Tom and Jerry. I was not interested. I was interested. I was very like older for my age, and
literally,
I just fell in love.
Me feel like Oprah. A child. I mean, till this day, what has changed? I'm watching like Big Mouth. That's like literally, I'm still watching.
But it's so funny because I'm actually now like really getting into like Disney and stuff like that. But you know, when I was younger, 8 years old, I stumbled across, it was on BBC Two, and I stumbled across this Black woman talking, and she just captivated me. And it was saying this Black woman in charge, having her own show, and I was like, wow, I want to be like this woman when I grow up. And I idealized Oprah. I still do, still look up to her. She's phenomenal. So she was my role model. And also music, I was really into music. So Destiny's Child, Beyonce, like these were like my idols, like beautiful Black women.
We just like stared at the album covers and the little booklet that came with
oh my God, I did wow with that. And the thank yous, they all had their own thank yous. And you would have sometimes the song lyrics scene that they would produce and write their own music. It was just like music back in the day. It's not like it is nowadays. It was real shit. You know, it was so real. And they were the people that I idolized growing up because they looked like me. So it was musicians, singers, TLC as well. Loved TLC. Wanted to be like Left Eye. Whitney Houston was also like, I was obsessed.
My auntie
with Whitney Houston.
Rest in peace.
Whitney Houston was, I think, like it was Oprah or Whitney Houston, and then Destiny's Child. It was literally like that. Whitney Houston, I just was obsessed and adored her. And so those were the kind of role models that I had growing up.
Vanessa, I'm really curious how you went from, you know, studying biomedical sciences at Brunel University to then, you know, starting up Girls Talk London. Like, what is the gap in between there? Because it's just like amazing what you're doing with taking space as a woman and advocating for other women and empowering women. So let us know a little bit about that.
I mean, interesting story. So I realized during my second year of university with Bunsen burners and in the lab and my lab coats, it was not fly. It was not me. But I did my degree to please my parents, got the certificate.
As you do.
Exactly, just to kind of please them. And then during my second year of university, most of my friends had a side hustle, very entrepreneurial. And I set up my first social enterprise, which was called the Rafiki Network. So I applied for funding from the government, got it. Can you imagine it, like 20 years old? And
I can't imagine that now. Like I can't imagine doing that at 20. I can imagine doing that now.
Yeah.
Even though, by the way, listeners, I am 16. Let's continue.
Exactly,
and Vanessa is still 20.
And got funding and took my friends from uni, and we went to mentor Black youth in South London. And then after finishing university, I knew that being a doctor just wasn't really my calling, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I just didn't know like what kind of shape it would take. So my cousin, who also went to Brunel, Mabasa, he said to me, he did a degree in engineering, and he was like, Vanessa, a lot of banks are hiring outside of their grad scheme, so they're looking for scientists, so you should apply. So after university, a couple of months after, I ended up working at Barclays, I worked at JP Morgan, and I also worked at HSBC in various roles, just doing a lot of temping. And that's when I realized, actually, I want to work in business, but in the doing good space. So helping them contribute in a positive way to the environment and to the world. And so I then decided, right, I know that medicine is definitely not for me, but I want to work with companies to help them do better. So I decided to upskill. I did a master's in sustainability and management at Royal Holloway, the University of London. And then that's when I started working in diversity and inclusion with companies in the financial services as a consultant. And that's when I started Girls Talk London. And I realized that actually that there was a big issue around gender equality in the workplace. And I wanted to do something about it. The current organization where I was working didn't really want to do anything officially for girls. So I thought, I'm going to do my own thing. And that's how I started Girls Talk London in 2013.
That's amazing. Why the name Girls Talk London? So it's like really interesting because, you know, I love the mission that it has and, you know, the explanation and the description that you give. But like, you know, for someone who didn't hear the explanation, they think, oh, Girls Talk London. Like you think of those like little magazines you'd read as a girl with the horses and all of that. Like, we're going to talk about like boys and cute trends and how to do your makeup for summer or something. But it's not that at all.
There was a magazine called Girls Talk, but that disbanded. But because we started out, so Girls Talk, we started actually as bringing senior women in business to talk to young girls. That's hence the name Girls Talk. And then because Girls Talk was a really popular name globally, London was actually unknown. And we thought, okay, we're in London, let's just call the company Girls Talk London. It just kind of happened like that. So I was actually brainstorming with O2.
Yeah.
They were one of our early partners. And then we were just like, oh, okay, Girls Talk London. But it's evolved. But because our community know our brand as Girls Talk London, we just thought there's no point doing a name change really. Let's just keep the name. And we've kind of just evolved in terms of what we offer. So that's how our name came about.
Today is a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you have a message you want to share with the world or you think, ooh, it could be fun to have my own talk show like one guy, getting started is easier than ever. Here at Zim Excellence, we use Buzzsprout, which is hands down the easiest, most affordable, and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Start for free and list your show on directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more within minutes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping and teaching you to succeed. Just check out their YouTube videos. They are filled with tons of information. So join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Sign up today using the link in the show notes or go to wongai.com/podcast creation and you'll get a $20 credit if you sign up for a paid plan. It also helps support the show. So go ahead, sign up for Buzzsprout and keep me posted on your new podcast. Now back to the show.
That's really cool. And I feel like by keeping the name, you know, rather than changing it, you've kind of redefined what we know as girls talk. Like, it's not just like sitting around with your girlfriends and gabbing. It's like, hey, let's, gossiping. Like, let's actually get down and be like, how are you doing? Are you okay? Like, what do you need? Like, this is, empowering you. literally talking about like women's issues and things we go through that like historically women were afraid to talk to other women about stuff that was going on about them because, you know, we were conditioned to, you know, we just don't talk about these things. Whether it's like, you know, my big passion is like menstrual health or like in your case, you know, business and financial literacy for women.
Yeah.
And I feel like in any kind of topic that you could talk about, this idea of taking space as a woman. So it's kind of amazing that you're not like, you have this organization about empowering women and helping women get ahead that's run by a woman and that you are just so visible and like so young. How does that feel? Because I know like as an actor, I know I read in one of your blog posts that you are an introvert. I am also an introvert, and being visible can be very, very anxious, you know, filled with anxiety and just overwhelming. How do you get through it? Basically, how does it all feel?
It is overwhelming. And I think the great thing is now I've built out my team. I'm like, right, you now go and network and speak on my behalf because I'm tired. Because it takes up so much energy. So I have to psych myself up. And a lot of my team are like, how are you an introvert? You're so good at speaking and you're so confident and you're so... And I'm like, you don't know how I have to prepare. I have to get my essential oils going. I have to play my playlist. I have to... After the engagement, I need to lie down. You know, like it takes all the energy out of me. And it's this whole anxiety. And I have to really psych myself up to do speaking engagements, to go to... I hate networking engagements, but I have to do it because it's just, you know, my role as an entrepreneur and as a CEO now. So I have to do it, but what I've done is I've looked at the tools that are at my disposal to kind of get me through it. So aromatherapy, herbal tea is really good, making sure that if I've got like a lot of speaking engagements, if I'm going to like something like an event, just to make sure that the next morning I just have some downtime and that I can just go home and just really decompress. And I use these essences as well, like to kind of just calm like anxiety and nerve, these natural essences that you can put in water. I'm a big believer in ashwagandha. I think it's called ashwagandha.
Yes.
I think how you pronounce it.
It is.
It's this kind of natural herb that really helps with anxiety. So I usually take it the day before, maybe if I've got like a big speaking engagement or something like that. But I'm getting better at it now that I know like what tools to use. Yeah.
Yeah. I have this whole thing where I'm just like, I made an Instagram post the other day and I was like, y'all, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I need to tell you this because some of you think I have it figured out and I don't. I'm literally making it up as I go along. Exactly. I tell people I lead with intuition and sometimes I don't know what I mean. Like, I take my CBD, I drink water, I light the incense, I have candles going, I put on the playlist and I'm just like, you know, I give myself those affirmations that like, it's okay for me to take space, that I'm worthy, that I'm enough, that I'm deserving. And then also reminding myself of, you know, all those to come that like might see themselves in me, not to be a narcissist, but it's like, you know, in the big scheme of things, there's just still not that many of us. So I'd also kind of like to link that, you know, the fact that you host a podcast that's amazing and also like giving more, like being of value and service and giving information to people about, you know, industries they might be interested in, and how absolutely amazing it is that you debuted at number 4 because 50% of all podcast listeners are women, identify as women.
Yeah.
But less than 50% of shows are hosted by women.
Yeah,
and then
crazy.
Less than that 50% will be Black women. And of course, African women, Zimbabwean women, and you can go further and all of that stuff. So what you're doing is actually very powerful.
Thank you. It is because I don't know, even just for me, I think it just being a Zimbabwean Black woman. I mean, you have so many like with our Nigerian and Ghanaian counterparts. They've got so many like of their Black women from their diaspora who are doing things. But I feel like with Zim, it's very difficult to ascertain lots of people who are doing things maybe like in the space that I wanted to do. I kind of struggled with that. I didn't necessarily have that role model. So I kind of do feel not alone, but I would love more of my kind of fellow country women, men and non-binaries to kind of do things like podcasting in the media space, because I think there's definitely a lack of. I've never, seen like a British, apart from Munya now, like he's a British comedian. His name is Munya. He's like blown up. He's got like 1 million followers. He's a massive comedian. He's Zimbabwean. But apart from him, that kind of presenter / content creator space in terms of Zimbabweans, I'd love to see more of us. Yeah.
You and I both, represent, the first generation kids or the third culture kids. And we've kind of like ventured off from the non-traditional nursing and being a doctor and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's harder than people will ever understand, because again, there's that feeling of being alone, but then there's also that like pressure that might be put on you or isn't even put on you knowingly of, being the representative for everyone. So everyone's watching you, because if you make a mistake, you represent all of us.
Yes, that's the pressure. That is a pressure of, like debuting, as you mentioned, an Apple Business podcast, being a Black woman, being a Black British woman, then being a Black British Zimbabwean
woman. Yes,
is a lot of pressure, because it's just kind of, I guess, maybe the first of hopefully many to kind of really kind of open up in that space in terms of UK business podcasts. So it's a lot of pressure, and I'm just making sure that I am my authentic self, but at the same time I do know that my ancestors are with me, and they're like, don't shame us, don't let us down, like those kind of things as well.
I love that image. I think it was Ava DuVernay maybe got this from Oprah, Mama O, about having that idea of, when you walk into the room, you walk into the room with the 10,000 people behind you.
I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. That's the one phrase that is very, very powerful. I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. Yeah.
So when was the moment that you realized that you were at the point of no return with Girls Talk London, and that it just wasn't, an experiment or a hobby? Like, I don't know what people, would have been saying at the time, like, oh, Vanessa, oh, you're just doing your thing or whatever, how like Zimbabwean family talk and all of that. But then that you kind of maybe saw the vision of it expanding into the climb and Black girls in tech and Black girls in finance and all the wonderful things.
Yeah, I kind of, even up until like last year, I was still trying to pursue that corporate journey of climbing the ladder. I think, and most of it, I guess, was cultural, the status, because I used to work for a very large international bank, and it was like working for this bank, and now I'm going to climb that corporate ladder, and I'll still have Girls Talk on the side. But when you have a destiny and a purpose, for me, I just feel like the universe and God, the higher powers, they will literally shove you, somersault you into that destiny. There's no way that you can escape it. And as much as I try to say, I want to do the corporate thing, I would have clients. I remember saying to like 4 of my clients, you know what, I'm just want to do my corporate thing. So I don't really want to do any of our programs anymore. This will be the last one. I just want to wind Girls to London down, and I just want to just do me. And they were like, but wait, what are we going to do? And I'm like, you're like the 4 like major tech companies in the world. Like, what do you mean? What are we going to do? And it was like the universe was just literally pushing me into this, into Girls Talk London. And then it was around September 2021, I was just in this toxic work environment with toxic colleagues. And literally, I just felt this urge that God was telling me, it's time to leave. This is your purpose. This environment is not serving you. This is your purpose. And it was at that moment when I took that leap of faith to say, do you know what? I'm really going to give it my all properly this time. Do it full time. And I'm doing it full time as in I'm not seeing a plan B. So I used to kind of do Girls Talk London, but kind of contract, do some, like I'd always have my toes in the corporate space as a freelance, as a kind of supplement income. But this is now like, I'm business mode, I'm growing my team. So that was kind of how I ended up really just in my purpose full time.
So this is full time now?
Yeah, full time since September 2021. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so, thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to read this quote that was in your article for Stylist magazine, a magazine that I actually used to read back when I lived in the UK.
Oh, wow. Back in the day.
It was one of the first magazines that I was reading on iPad, because I think it was like one of the first that had like a digital version.
They were revolutionary. They still are.
Literally. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So the quote is, "To level up in your career takes guts. You need to put in the work to face your fears and get committed to be uncomfortable for a while as you make the necessary changes within yourself." Mm-hmm. So we've talked a little bit about, imposter syndrome and, having those tools ready and psyching yourself up to, be able to go out and speak and to do all these like major big things within your company. I want to talk a little bit about financial literacy, especially when it comes to women. And I also want to talk about, because you give a lot of tips on your Instagram about negotiating, your salary and, standing up for yourself in like work environments, especially because sadly it's 2022 and there still aren't a lot of women, not just like in business and tech, but in just all spaces, sadly. And just also the importance behind, people getting comfortable with their finances, because we're moving into this Web3 world of cryptocurrency and blockchain. And the people who get left behind first are usually women and people of color. I think it was last year's, in 2021's International Women's Day, I read a UN report that was something around, I think the statistic was around 593 million girls around the world are uneducated or like don't get past getting educated past age 6 or something like that, which is really sad because you find that, money does equal power, and it is the people with money who make all these big decisions and influence politics and stuff like that. Elon Musk just casually bought Twitter like a month ago. So we have to, I cannot let you go without talking about financial literacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. I think even when I think about growing up, I was never taught anything about financial literacy, never encouraged to save, never told about investments, pensions, what credit cards were, nothing about.
And we're from Zimbabwe as well, where the money stuff hits harder.
I know. And it's crazy. And so for me, I've learned watching my parents make terrible financial decisions and learn from their mistakes. And so I'm very conscious. I'm very, very anal about being in debt, very anal about, just making sure I save, making sure I'm looking at my pensions, making sure that I'm investing. Like that has been something that I've been really, really determined to learn because of just watching my parents be horrendous at it. So I think it's really around me. That's why I'm so passionate about educating, especially Black families and Black individuals, because there is a Black wealth gap. And that's just not around women, that's Black people in general. So the average net worth, I think, of a Black family is like £10,000. And a white family is like times 100 more. And it's shocking. It's shocking. So I think it's really important for Black people to educate themselves around this new Web3, evolution of financial tech, and making sure that they educate themselves, that they tap in, go to different events, read different books, listen to the Financial Times. They've got so many different podcasts. They have daily updates. Earn Your Leisure is another podcast, which is about Black wealth literacy. So it's really important for Black people to educate themselves on what is happening in the financial services to benefit themselves. But there is a pension gap with women in terms of how much we have when we retire compared to men. We have significantly less. So I think it's really important for women to start getting comfortable about talking about their finances, talking about money. So when you're in business, I'm having that now where I've had to review some of our structure in terms of our finances. I'm having to double some of our prices. And you have some companies that are very happy to pay Black women peanuts.
Yeah.
And there are some that actually see, you know what, this is how much you're worth. So don't get scared about charging what you're worth and seeing clients go, because the right clients will pay you what you're worth. And that's the same thing when you go into like a new, when you're negotiating for a new job. I have a lot of my clients who I coach or are part of the client membership. Some of them are scared. Like, what if I'm asking for double my salary right now? What if they say no? And then I always say, but would you want to work for someone, an organization who doesn't really see any value in you?
Mm-hmm.
No. So it goes across the board. It's around women, Black women especially, seeing our value and asking for what we're worth. Doesn't matter what I charged back in 2020. Yesterday's price ain't today's price.
Exactly.
So
stocks be going up.
Yes, we need to align. What people don't realize is they'll say, oh, well, why are you asking for double your salary? Why are you doubling your rates? Well, honey, you are paying me half of what I was worth. Mm-hmm. Now I know better. It's aligning. It's all about alignment. So think about, let's get aligned. Let's go out and get what we are actually overdue and what we're worth. Yeah.
Especially because as Black women, we've literally carried countries on our back, whether it's like, Black women in this country, a lot of farming is done by people of color, whether that's like people of Latin descent or African descent are farmers here, whether it's like, we're going back to slavery and people who picked cotton and built railroads and all of this stuff. And,
mm-hmm.
Stuff that was happening in Africa, the fact that, the materials that you use to make an iPhone were taken from different African countries. Black women have done so much for this world. So
exactly.
It's time we get paid. It's time.
It is. We are,
and even as mothers, taking care of the household and taking care of children and supporting the man if you're in a heterosexual relationship. There's,
It's a lot. We are carrying the backs of many people.
Literally. So, as someone who, was born in the diaspora, when was the first time you went to Zimbabwe, and what are your memories around? Do you have any favorite memories from visiting Zimbabwe?
I've always been back and forth from Zim. So I think I might have gone to Zim when I was like 2 or 3, I think.
Yeah.
And then since then, every couple of years, I've always gone. So I've been to Zim so many times. And my earliest memory would be just being with my grandmother, because my grandmother actually came to the UK and she actually raised me. And so I've always been really close to her. And then my earliest memory of going back to Zim was with my grandfather, my mum's father. And so my grandmother who raised me is my mother's mother. Mm-hmm. And just being in Zim, and we went to like Victoria Falls and Lake Kariba and doing all the kind of touristy stuff, because that was when we went with my younger brother when he was about 1 or 2. That was my earliest experience of doing all the fun stuff in Zim, like seeing all my cousins and people being there at the airport. Those were the days when watching planes land was a big thing, and everybody would be at the airport to greet you.
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Yeah. Ain't like that no more. No one gives a heck whether you've landed on.
They're like, okay, I'm bringing the car around.
Exactly. Like those are the days when literally all of your family would be there to watch the plane land, and they would be there saying, "Hey," they'd meet you at the airport. It was like you felt as if like the Beatles had arrived. So that was my first experience of being back in Zim. Yeah.
I want to talk about something that isn't like a downer, but it, it kind of needs to be talked about because I believe in healing. So you and I have had that similar part of our upbringing where, we didn't really speak Shona. And so, aside from being the only Black people in our classes, like in the UK or wherever we lived in the world, once we were back in Zimbabwe, it was like people treated us like we weren't Zimbabwean enough, or like because we didn't know the language, or like we had accents. And in your case, you were lighter skinned than most people. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I think, because I remember my aunt saying to me, I was like, why are Zimbabweans just so like mean to me? I used to always cry.
I
and
cried
she was like,
so much.
Yeah. And she would say, Vanessa, you have to understand that Zimbabwe as a country is broken.
Mm-hmm.
As in, there's a lot of pain in that country and with the people. If you think about from Rhodesia, and that's kind of apartheid segregation, and then now how difficult things are in Zim, my aunt was like, Vanessa, if you are a person or a country that has been abused since your inception and there's so much pain and suffering, you're not necessarily going to be the most, love and light and welcoming people. So that's kind of where I've made peace with. And I think growing up, exactly, like, I was very lighter skinned. People thought I was mixed race, and I used to get called like Murungu all the time, like a white person, and get made fun of. And I just remember, like, I will never forget the story. Like, my dad's sister, I remember I was at her house and these local kids were bullying me. And I was like, oh, they've called me a white person. And I was crying. And she never stood up for me. And to this day, like, I will never forget that. And just how she was just like, oh, whatever. Like, I didn't have anyone there to back me up, to stick up for me. And it was just like, oh, whatever. And so even when I understand Shauna, because my grandmother, as I mentioned, raised me from when I was like a baby.
Yeah.
So she couldn't speak English. So she would always speak Shauna to me. And that's how I can understand it like fluently. Like I can understand Shauna perfectly. But then when I would try to speak it, I would get made fun of because of my accent, or I'd say wrong words. And this is what I mean about Zimbabweans. We really have to be honest with ourselves. We can be mean to diasporans who are trying to speak the language. They would laugh at you, make fun of you, or you can't pronounce this word, rather than with love correct you and say, actually, that was really good, but just say this word. So you know what? I just thought, forget it. I don't need to actually learn how to speak Shauna. I can understand it, and that's good enough for me. Yeah. And that's where I am right now. I have no desire to speak it. I can understand it, and that's fine. My grandparents are all deceased, so it's like they didn't speak English. So there's no one that I need to communicate with that's alive. So I'm like, I just made peace with that. I'm not gonna try, and it's quite sad, but it's not because I don't want to, and I'm gonna put the onus on that pain. I've just kind of made peace and just thought I'm not gonna beg. It is what it is.
Yeah. I think I feel like the last couple of years, especially being back in Zimbabwe during the pandemic, I've learned that it kind of goes both ways. While there's like, the treatment of, how people in Zimbabwe see people in the diaspora as like, oh, maybe they're popping bottles or they think they're better than us. And then people in the diaspora being like, oh, we have to save the people back home. Like they need help.
Yes.
And all of this. So there's kind of like that disconnect because we're all in our kind of bubbles, not thinking the grass is greener in one place, or we know what's happening in that place, and just projecting.
Yes. That's I think what it was, a kind of, well, you're living this life, you don't understand what we're going through. And it's like, I actually do. I'm actually Zimbabwean. I'm a proud Zimbabwean. So I guess if someone took the previous clip, they might take sound bites, they might say whatever, but I am a proud Zimbabwean. Like, I have dual nationality. I have a Zimbabwean passport and a British passport, and I'm proud Zimbabwean, but in my own way. And
literally,
I think it's just one of those things where people, like you're saying, they think that we're just sitting here living la vida loca. I always say to my family, you come live in the UK. It's a hard life. It's a hard life as well.
People always telling me, rest. And I'm like, rest? I'm an immigrant in America. I need to literally like hustle my way into staying in this country.
It's not easy. Even being born here, I still feel like you don't feel like you're British. You feel like an outsider.
Second-rate citizen.
Yeah. I mean, when people always ask me, where are you from? I always say Zim, like Zimbabwe. But, it's that misunderstanding, and that, I kind of feel like, okay, like you're saying, it works both ways. But at the end of the day, I just feel like I know that I've, you try to engage. And I think it's important to just respect that this is just where it is. Maybe it's a diaspora and they're not really feeding us right now. And you know what? That's okay. Oh, my business. Because they might think, oh, you've got it easy and we've got it, we've got it really hard here. So I think we have to also respect that. Yeah. We can't expect, our fellow Zimbabweans who are living on the ground to be like, welcome us with open arms if they're going through difficult challenges. So we have to, I always respect that. And I think, okay, cool. I received that. Yeah.
It's all relative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vanessa, are you ready for our lightning round?
Yes, I'm ready. Yes.
Sweet. Okay. Lightning round. What is your zodiac sign? Because you do all the things. Sagittarius, Leo.
I'm Capricorn.
Girl.
Yes.
What? I'm a Capricorn.
When's your birthday?
December 27th. When's your birthday?
Oh, okay. I'm January the 3rd.
Nice.
My best friend's daughter is born on the 27th of December as well. Yeah.
Nice. Of course. That's why you do all the things so well, because ambition. The ambition is there. Yeah. We got Michelle Obama. We got Lovey Ajayi. We got Issa Rae. We got Denzel Washington. Yeah.
Fellow
brother. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Fellow cat.
With Debbie Ryan. It's lit.
Yeah, it is.
There's a reason why we're represented by the GOAT, because we are the greatest of all time.
Exactly. I love that.
I just had to let the people know. Okay. Last song you listened to.
I'll tell you now. The last song I listened to was Kalani. It wasn't good.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
To slap people and they don't know it's me.
I would slap so many politicians in Congress.
Slapped. Yeah.
Honey. Okay, last book you read.
The last book I read, let me go on my Audible because I'm always reading so many books.
Are you reading or are you listening? You can do both.
I listen. Mm-hmm. I listen and I do the hard copy, but the last book I read, so I'm just going to just put that up there so I can give you the actual last book, was The Value in the Valley by Iyanla Vanzant.
Okay, we love some Iyanla.
Yeah.
I showed my mom the clip where she's like, I'm going to the bush and weep, because my mom didn't know that clip.
You know what? Can you please send me that clip? I'm looking for that clip.
Okay, yeah.
That is literally like, let me just go in the bush and weep. That's my life every day.
Like, I just want like my family members to come together and have Iyanla just fix their lives and have them communicate with each other.
About Zimbabweans. We don't like anybody outside telling, especially generational, I think, with older Zimbabweans being told that they're wrong. My mum, apologize. Hell no.
Oh, okay. Favorite Zimbabwean musician?
Oh, Jar Praiser.
Sweet. Favorite Zimbabwean childhood snack?
Do you know what? I love biltong. Loved it.
There's a South African store here in New York that does biltong, and it's the closest thing to home. Okay, most controversial question of all. Mazoe orange versus Mazoe green.
Is that even a question, please? Green? Green. Like,
okay, girl.
I'm like, really?
It's controversial.
Really?
Okay. The next one is a power statement. I am Zim Excellence because blank.
Okay, I am Zim Excellence because my ancestors are with me.
Wonderful. If you could nominate someone for the award of Zim Excellence, who would it be?
My mom.
Oh, love it. And who would you nominate to come on the show?
Oh, my cousin, Ralph Mupita. He's really inspiring. So he's the CEO of MTN.
Nice. Ralph Mupita?
Yeah, Ralph Mupita. He's he's really an inspiring role model for me.
Ralph Mupita, you have officially been nominated to come on Zim Excellence. Mm-hmm. Vanessa, this is so wonderful. It's currently 1:11 in New York, so magical time. As we wrap up, I would love it if you could share a message with our listeners, as well as letting them know where they can follow your journey. You don't have to spell anything out. It's all going to be in the show notes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just let's keep flying the Zim flag. Diasporans, those who are in the country, let's just keep flying the flag. Let's have our voices heard as well. So yeah, I'm just a really proud Zimbabwean. I love everything about us, our culture. We're just lit. So let's just keep being lit. And yeah, people can follow me on social media, Instagram and Twitter at Vanessa Sanyauke. I'm on LinkedIn as well with Vanessa Chiesa Sanyauke. So Chiesa is my middle name. And you can actually like my page on Facebook. And then also Girls Talk London, at Girls Talk London. We're on all socials as well. So yeah, thanks for having me. It was really a lot of fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Come back anytime. Have a good one, y'all.
Thank y'all so much for coming to the party. Majita tatenda siyabonga. Nah, for real. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Zim Excellence. If you found value from this episode, please share it with a friend and go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I'll make sure to give you a shout out on future episodes. Feel free to tag us on Instagram at Zim Excellence Podcast. And if you identify as Zimbabwean, I want to hear your story, so go ahead and email zimexcellencepodcast@gmail.com. Till then, have the best week and stay Zim Excellent.